So if you feel like you're cluster feeding, or you feel like you're feeling like you're feeding all the time, that was a lot of F's. This is so TMI. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is another video on breastfeeding. I just finished filming like breastfeeding our story, and that video should be up on my channel already. It's kind of maybe a more boring video, but I feel like you should watch it if you haven't yet before you watch this one, just because I didn't have the most peachy breastfeeding experience, so it wasn't like that boring of an experience. So there were things in there that I feel like you could learn from, I think. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But if you have and you're here for this one shouldn't be quite as boring. This one is going to be breastfeeding tips. So yeah, hopefully they're tips. I try to think of things that will actually help you guys. If you like these videos, if you want to see more videos like these, let me know down below. It helps me out. It really does when you guys comment and let me know what you want to know, what from me, what you want me to film. And it's very late, so let's just get right into it. Breastfeeding is, I said this at the end of my last video, it is a lot of work. All of these things that I say as a quick disclaimer are not meant to scare anyone away from breastfeeding. It is just me trying to be realistic, because I think things in life can be good even though they're a lot of work, or even though they have bad things to them. I don't make these videos to scare anybody off or to inflict fear in you guys, because breastfeeding is good. It is good. Just keep like telling yourself that over and over throughout all my breastfeeding videos, because breastfeeding is good. It's great for you. It's great for your baby. But yeah, it's a lot of work. To be realistic and to be honest with you guys, sometimes, maybe for some people, it's just a breeze. Just like for some people, labor and delivery is a breeze, and being pregnant is a breeze. But I am not that person. And I feel like a lot of you might not be that person. These things can help you, because it is a little difficult sometimes. It's a learning process. It is something that takes time and commitment. Yeah, I'll stop rambling, but just that is my little disclaimer that breastfeeding is good. I'm not trying to inflict fear in you guys, and that breastfeeding is a lot of work, so hopefully these tips help you. All right, number one, if you are having bad issues with breastfeeding, stop watching this video and go and make an appointment with a lactation consultant or your doctor, maybe. I don't claim to be an expert in the area of breastfeeding. I've just breastfed my one baby for 14 months. If you're having issues, see a lactation consultant, get a second opinion on a latch, just get help that way. But if not, my biggest thing, my biggest breastfeeding tip, I think, is to join a La Leche League group on Facebook and educate yourself with articles like this, with videos. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't just get stressed out by how much information can be out there, but it's very good to educate yourself before baby comes. And if you're just in the thick of things now and you just had a baby, it's still good to educate yourself now, because maybe you'll learn something. But that was the thing that helped me the most, was that I said this in my last video. So La Leche, like I've explained before, are on the very natural side of doing things. Even if you're not on that side, wherever you fall on the spectrum of parenting and breastfeeding and schedules and baby-led weaning and all of the topics that come with parenting, wherever you stand on that spectrum, it doesn't matter. It's a great group to join and educate yourself on. I was just this person that sat back and read post after post and saw questions being asked, answers to it, and it helped me immensely before having the baby, or my baby, the baby, that sounds bad. It helps so much. So find moms that have breastfed before, ask them all the questions, because I doubt they care. Once you have a baby and you're breastfeeding, like, everything's out the window, if you can't tell by some of my videos. So yeah, that's my number one tip, is to join a group, a La Leche League group on Facebook. They have tons of them out there. A mom that's breastfed, just educate yourself beforehand on some things, and it can really come in handy in the future. So since that was a boring one, let's go to number two, if I can find it. Invest in good nursing bras. it is worth it. If you have the money to do it, there should be no other excuses. It's very, very hard. I'm a fairly frugal person. It's very, very hard to give in and spend good money on a bra that you're gonna wear for maybe 12 months and then maybe another 12 months with your next kids. You know what I mean? It's really hard to do that because like it just feels like it's not a very good investment, but you need to. So I had some bras that someone had given me because they didn't need them. They hadn't used some of them. Here you go. Well, they were kind of my size, kind of not, kind of uncomfortable, kind of comfortable. Just go onto my favorite website, I think is Motherhood Maternity. Find some comfortable nursing bras because even though it's 12 months of your life, you are like immersed in breastfeeding. You're just in it at first, like it's all you do. So it's worth it. It would have made a big difference if I had just gone and done that from the start rather than like 6 months into the process been like, hey, maybe I should get a good nursing bra. So I'm gonna keep talking about things that we should invest in. Invest in a boppy. This is an obvious tip. I know pillow works too, but the boppies are just lifesavers. They're great. They're made for breastfeeding, so I don't know that there's much more to talk about on that one. Nursing covers. In terms of investing in a nursing cover, my sister-in-law also told me this and it helped a ton, I think. I was like trying to figure out what kind of nursing cover I wanted before I had Beckham. She said, and it's true, that when you're first starting to breastfeed, you don't really know what you're doing and you want to be able to see things. You want to be able to see how you're latching them on. It's just easier to see things. And so when you have, at least for me, when you have like the tight scarf ones, the infinity scarf ones, or just the tight ones that can also be car seat covers, it's harder to see things. So you're just kind of like pulling that back and latching on baby and I mean, it's just like a lot of things going on. There's some at Target that are like those like poncho type of ones almost, where it's almost just like a blanket and then it has this wire here that like lets you see what you're doing. Personally, that doesn't work when they get older and really nursing covers aren't the greatest things ever anyway. But if you're gonna invest in them, because babies hate them, if you're gonna invest in them, I suggest getting both. Just either don't get them at all or get both of them, I guess. Because at first you want to be able to see what you're doing, but then eventually they kick everything off, and so you don't want a big poncho one because then whoop, if you don't want to be exposed, you're exposed. Number 5, you need breast pads. I feel like some of these at the beginning are kind of obvious, so I apologize, but you can have disposable ones or you can have ones that you wash, whatever floats your boat. You need them. I needed them before I even had Beckham. You can leak colostrum before you even have your baby. I didn't know that. Okay, number 6. Where's number 6? I don't even have a number 6. 7, water is essential. If you didn't know that, like I said, it's a fairly obvious one, but you have to be drinking water a lot to keep your supply up, to keep yourself hydrated. You're constantly giving to this baby. So same with foods. Don't stress yourself out over it, but be mindful of what you're putting yourself or what you're putting into your body, and just the fact that you need to keep putting stuff into your body so that you can keep thriving and keep going in order to keep baby to keep thriving and keep going. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Okay, number 8, in terms of supply, you're gonna get mixed opinions on this. My best supply booster, even though I didn't struggle with it a whole ton, was blue Gatorade and oatmeal. So oatmeal cookies, oatmeal cream pies, oatmeal bars, anything that had oats in it. That's why some doctors recommend that you have a beer. In terms of Gatorade, I found, I don't know if it's just an old wives' tale or if it's just in your head or placebo or whatever, but blue Gatorade seemed to do the trick. Really just a Gatorade, just that source of electrolytes would always help raise my supply. But it seemed like when I got the cool blue Gatorade, and people swear by this, women in the La Leche group swear by blue Gatorade, and so I was like, oh, okay. And whatever, if it doesn't work for you, I'm sorry, but just if you need a supply boost, blue Gatorade and oatmeal. Just a quick little tip, don't stress yourself out over it, but exercise can affect your supply, at least at first if your body's adjusting, so just be mindful of it. Don't avoid exercise for that reason, but just be mindful of it. For me, this is just my own opinion, and putting your opinion on YouTube always gets other opinions, but I did not feel the need to wake my baby to feed them in the middle of the night when they were first born. Now, I had an 8-pound, 13 healthy, thriving baby. If you have a low birth weight baby, if you are told by your doctor, if you have just a tiny baby, or just if your baby's hungry, feed your baby. But I was not gonna wake my baby up with an alarm because they told me that I needed to feed him every 2 to 3 hours. If he slept for 4 hours and he was over there and he was safe and he was happy and he was cool and chill and I was sleeping, I was not gonna wake him up to feed him. If he woke up hungry, then I would feed him. I'm not gonna be like, no. This kind of goes along with that. This is just my opinion, and some people, I did not struggle with supply like some people do. Okay, so keep that in mind as I'm saying this, but I felt that it was just best to let my baby lead. Now, I'm at home. I don't have to go to work or plan to pump, and that is a totally different ballgame. Okay, but I just felt like since I didn't have to pump for that, I never pumped at the beginning. I let him determine my supply. It was hard when you're engorged and your milk comes in to not pump, but I didn't want to mess with anything, because a lot of the time when you start to mess with things, that's when you have problems with oversupplies, and then you have problems with thrush or mastitis. And I just tried to keep this mindset of just like going with the flow, letting him lead, reading his cues. Even at 12 months, I didn't just like cut feedings because I felt like it. I let him show me his cues and I just followed his lead. But I think it's just best to trust your body and trust your baby and let them, if you can, let the baby feed off cue, find a good Netflix show and just sit down, and then they cluster feed forever. But you can watch reruns of Friends or Gossip Girl or The Office. That was me. Number 11, you can hear swallows. So this sounds kind of weird to someone that's never breastfed. Just saying it for someone that if you're planning on breastfeeding and you like don't quite understand if you know that they're getting what they need to be getting or if they're getting milk, you can hear them swallow. You can hear what they're doing. You can hear clicks. You can see what they're doing. I didn't realize that ahead of time. It can help you determine whether they have a good latch or whether they are getting milk, is that you can hear them swallow. Number 12, where are you? So the way that I breastfed, or that I was taught and that worked best or whatever, you feed them on one side, you let them do their thing until they're done, or you unlatch them, you burp them, and then you feed them on the other side. And then you need to make sure that most of the time you alternate which side you start on. When a baby first starts feeding and when they first latch on is when they're the most efficient, when they're the most awake, when they're the most hungry. They're gonna get milk the best on that side. And then you burp them and then you latch them on again and they're gonna be more full, they're not gonna want the milk as much, and they're gonna be more tired, especially when they're newborns. They get so tired. Like, feeding is a lot of work for them, that's all they do, so that it wears them out. So just make sure to alternate which sides. And then that leads me into that they can feed forever. Some babies are more efficient than others. My baby, I talked about this in my our story video, but Beckham would, at first, he would feed for like 40 minutes total. He would feed for like 20 minutes on one side, sometimes 10 to 20 minutes on each side. So it was like a long time. And then he was feeding every 2 to 3 hours. So I had about an hour of time to myself of not feeding. Just know that as with all babies, there's nothing set in stone. You should just read your baby's cues, go with the flow, even though it can make you crazy. Some babies are super efficient and they're done. They're quick nursers. Some babies just take their sweet time. So if you feel like you're cluster feeding, or you feel like you're feeling like you're feeding all the time, that was a lot of F's. Yeah, just go with the flow. If you think that they are getting milk and they're thriving and they're gaining weight and they're on track at doctor's appointments, then just go with the flow. It's hard to not fret and not worry about if they're getting enough, if they're feeding too much or too little. but just let them lead and follow their cues. And in terms of pumping, I have only used one brand of pump because I've only nursed one baby, but from all of the reviews on the La Leche group and from reviews of friends and stuff, the Spectra pump is wonderful. Obviously, there's more than just the Spectra pumps out there that are more common. I hadn't even heard of Spectra until I joined that La Leche group. So I was kind of wary of it, but it had such great reviews. I got it through insurance. Make sure to check with your insurance to see if they cover that. It was very quiet for one. I heard that Medela can oftentimes be pretty loud. So the Spectra was so quiet. Like I could have him next to me sleeping when he was even older and he would wake at some noises and he couldn't hear anything. And then number two, with the Spectra pump, it's great because you don't have to wash any tubing. With a Medela, you have to wash the tubing and it's a pain and getting it to dry well. So look into Spectra pumps if you are planning on buying a pump, which you should. I actually don't have any experience with this. I just have tons of moms on YouTube, on Instagram, on Friends, Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, because look, she's pulling away again. Do you think my nipples are too big for her mouth?
Anyway, that have used the Haka, H-A-A-K-A, like little pump milk catcher thing. You just latch it on, especially right when your milk comes in and you're just like engorged or you have a ton of milk those first couple months. You feed baby on one side. Well, during your letdown, you have both your boobs let down. So if you're only nursing the baby on one side, if you have the other boob covered, it will just go into a nursing pad, and that is a ton of milk wasted. You can latch on this Haka little silicone thing, and it catches all of the milk that would have been in a nursing pad, and then you can freeze it and store it or use it for bottles and stuff. So I didn't use that, and that is a tip for you and a tip for me for the future because I will be using that next time, if there's a next time. Some babies don't like bottles, like my baby, ever. And sometimes it seems like a lot of the bottles that are the bigger brands like Avent and Dr. Brown's and I'm trying to think of other ones. There's a ton of them. They tend to have more, the Nook. They tend to have more round nipples. Sometimes babies are weird, and like my baby, and they want more of a flat nipple to it. There are moms that breastfeed that use the Avent and the Dr. Brown's and the Nook. So whatever, I think it's just your baby's preference, but just know that those are out there. The one that my baby maybe kind of took by the time he was 12 months was the MAM, M-A-M bottles, and that was more of like a flat nipple. You know, we didn't try a pacifier because of his bad latch at the beginning. You'll know about if you watched my last video, but he just did not have a latch. He had tongue ties and stuff. I think with my next baby, I'm not sure. I don't know that nipple confusion is really that real. Just, it's my opinion. You can look into it and determine your own opinion on it, but I don't know if it's really that crazy real. I don't think that you should necessarily pop a pacifier in their mouth like the minute the baby is born. I think it's good to get bonding and latch and stuff established. But I know plenty of moms that have breastfed that used a pacifier like from the first day or the second day, and they had a healthy, thriving, successful breastfeeding relationship. And so I think in the future, if I have a baby that doesn't have ties, doesn't have a latch issue, I'll try it. Now, granted, some babies just don't take pacifiers, and there's plenty of babies that do that. It was fine. I could see his little face more often. He smiled a lot without a pacifier in his mouth, but a pacifier also would have come in kind of handy sometimes. A lot of times. Kind of educate yourself, determine your own opinion on when you want your pacifier, if you want a pacifier to be used. Kind of figure that out before you go to the hospital, because it's a good thing to be able to tell the nurses what you want. If you watched my other video, you'll know about this. I'll probably tell it to every mom on the face of this earth if they ever ask me about breastfeeding. But that is that ties, tongue ties and lip ties, are real things. They are real. They are real, and a lot of doctors and a lot of people are not educated on them. I might just make a whole video about them. It's basically a thing like it's a frenulum, and here can be worse in some babies, can be more attached and more tight. A lot of the time it can cause issues with breastfeeding. So it caused bad latch with Beckham. He was just gnawing on my nipple at first, and so I was cracked and bleeding and bruised, and I mean like split down the middle. It was the worst. Now I wrote down that some babies don't necessarily need revision. Some people feel strongly that every tie needs a revision, but revision can help with things other than breastfeeding. A lip tie can cause a gap in your teeth. Sometimes can cause issues with speech and like slurring or lisps. Yeah, I'm not trying to scare anybody about them or anything like that, but just be aware of them. We're getting there. I don't have too many left. Coconut oil is a lifesaver, if you want to. It was a lifesaver for me. So I think it's good to invest in some type of like nipple cream or nipple butter or ointment or whatever before baby's born, and bring that to the hospital with you. So your nipples have to adjust to breastfeeding. A crazy thing for your body to get used to. It's natural, but it's weird and crazy. So your nipples have to adjust. So it's good to bring something to help them from the start. So I brought Earth Angel Baby Mama nipple butter or something like that to the hospital, and the scent of it still brings back bad memories. But it would have worked, I think. I think it would have been great if he hadn't had the latch issues. So I'm still gonna bring that next time around. But when I was so damaged and so hurt and so needing like healing, coconut oil was like the thing. Coconut oil heals, and it's great, and it's natural, and it smells good. It was just great, but just be careful because it can stain your shirts if it gets on your shirt. And then it's also good, I wrote down breast milk. Sometimes if you just put breast milk on your nipple and then let it air dry, that can help heal it too. Change your breast pads frequently to avoid thrush. So thrush is no fun at all. Most of the time you have to be put on an antibiotic to get rid of it. It's just like a buildup, I think, of yeast, and so it can cause pain when feeding them. It transfers to baby and all that stuff. So one way to avoid thrush is to let air dry sometimes, and then to make sure that, especially in the beginning when you are leaking all the time, to be changing your breast pads very, 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 very frequently. The next one I have written down, I talked about in my last video, but there is such a thing as an overactive letdown. When you feed a baby, in terms of if you've never nursed a baby before, you latch them on, they will nurse for a little while, and then that like stimulates your body to have a letdown. And then the letdown makes it so that they can get, there's hind milk and fore milk. So then that's when they get a lot of your milk, the good stuff that fills their belly. And sometimes you can have an overactive letdown where it just like, it's just nuts. Ugh. So it just like sprays out. It sounds so weird. And it can be very forceful and a lot for your baby to handle. They're just born, they're these tiny little things. They don't know how to handle a ton of food all at once. So it's kind of hard for them if you have this. So one of the ways to help them and help their little bodies is to latch them on, make it so that they nurse for a little while, and then you can feel a letdown, feel it before it happens. It sounds weird, but right before you have a letdown, you take them off, you unlatch them, which they hate, and then not for very long, you take a burp cloth and then let down into the burp cloth very quickly. It's like a minute, I don't even know, and then latch baby back on, and there's still plenty of milk for them usually, and it's not so hard for them to handle it, because I think that that's what caused him to spit up so much in his first couple of months of life. I wrote that down for my next, and I think it's my last tip. If you have a reflux baby, or even a baby that's spitting up a lot like we did with Beckham, one good way to help them, to help their little bellies, is to tilt their crib. So if you have a crib, putting something under the legs of the crib, or with us we had the pack and play, and so here's the mattress. We just put a few blankets or a pillow, a flat pillow pillow underneath it, and it wasn't like he was like this. You have to make sure that they're not like that and they slide down. But it was just enough, because a lot of the times if you have reflux babies, it sometimes can be based on milk and stuff, but sometimes can be due to the fact that their little valve at the top of their stomach isn't developed enough and still needs a little time to develop and be able to close and keep the food in their belly. And so when they're lying flat, it doesn't help that the milk can just come back up, cause reflux, burn, painful, cranky baby, because that's no fun. So if you tilt their crib, I think you guys get the idea. I could stop talking about it, but tilt the crib, it helps that little food to not come back up, and they're sometimes a little happier. So those, I think, are all of my tips. Yeah. Oh, no, I have one more. I don't know why I didn't put a number by this one, but it is that there are different positions to breastfeeding. There's tons of different ways to do them, especially, I mean, if you have twins, you don't have a whole ton of options. But there is like a cross cradle hold. There's the cradle hold. You can have their little head in the nook of your arm. There's the football hold, where you kind of have their head here, and then you're like this, and so their body is back here, their little feet are behind you. So just be aware of the different positions that you can use, because when I was having such issues, like such bad issues feeding Beckham at first when it was so painful, eventually it got to the point where I don't know if he had just created a callus or I think the crack on one of, this is so TMI, one of my nipples was cracked, split, okay? So when I would nurse him the same way every time, it would like irritate the crack. Whereas then eventually my mom suggested that I flip him and do the football position. That somehow didn't seem to irritate the crack as much. I don't know if it's pushed together or whatever, but it was like somewhat of a lifesaver, really, because then I could nurse him on that side with a little less pain than I had before. So be aware of all the different types. Some work better for some babies. That helped me be able to heal on that side, and I fed him that way for months. There are different ways to feed him. I did not know that beforehand. So, sorry for such a long video again. I guess I just have a lot to talk about with breastfeeding. Hopefully some of these were helpful for you guys. Let me know down below if they were, or if you have any other questions at all about breastfeeding. Obviously, if you can't tell from some of my videos, the door is wide open. You can ask me anything. So make sure to follow me on Instagram. Post pictures of Beckham all the time, but then I also get a lot of you asking me questions through messages on there. It's a lot easier. Keep your eyes out for my next video that I'm gonna film next, even though it's like 1 in the morning right now. And that will be what they don't tell you about breastfeeding. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Seriously, you guys are the best. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!